And yes, we are investing in new technology at the city hall. So we're in the midst of that. Okay, we are back live for the Manhattan Area Recovery Task Force. I apologize to our viewing audience on cable channel 3 and streaming services, but we will continue back with Gina Scroggs from the Downtown Manhattan Incorporated, giving some updated information about downtown. Gina, do you want to continue on?
I'll just indicate that our commercial occupancy is down just a hair. And really, that is not necessarily a bad thing. It's because we actually added brand new space that we haven't had in the past. So it has an impact, obviously, to our occupancy. Our residential occupancy is also down a bit, and that is because a lot of the multifamily dwellings or apartments are not occupied because we don't have a lot of K-State students here. We don't have the same number of students. So that's been impacted by a couple of percentage points, but really 97% is pretty darn good. And also the 3,450 employees that are in the downtown district, not including Manhattan Marketplace, is also down just a bit. And that is reflective of the fact that about 40% of our employers are reporting that they are still trying to hire, and they have not been able to replace those positions that they either had to let go or furlough during the pandemic. And as everyone's probably very aware, the employee pool is not fabulous right now. So that number is down a little bit as well. For the most part, though, about 85% of our businesses are reporting that they're experiencing active business recovery. So I think that that's an excellent sign. That's really super happy about that. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, we had about 25% of our non-retail businesses report that they had shifted to working remotely for more than 6 months out of last year. And 10% of those businesses will have one or more employees staying at home. So I will be interested to see if that impacts at all our office business space structures, setups down here, if people are going to be looking for smaller spaces. I know that that's actually a scenario that's happening in my building right now. Obviously, I don't want that to happen, and I hope that that shift comes back around to people wanting to work away from home. But we'll see. I think everybody's interested to know what that's going to look like. And of course, as everyone knows, we were able to create 10 outdoor dining spaces. 9 of those were the dining platforms and 1 sidewalk cafe. And those have been absolutely impactful on many levels for not just our restaurant, but for all of our businesses have seen business generated from those platforms and from those outdoor dining spaces. So that was a fabulous investment by the city, and really a good way to use recovery funds. I think they did exactly what they should do. And in our recent survey with our businesses, clear indication that people want them to stay there. Parking is a bit of an issue, but it seems like most think it's a fair trade-off. And when we get ready to survey the general public, we'll find out how they feel about that specific issue as well. that's really what I have for you. I think it's all pretty positive right now.
All right. I believe Dennis isn't on. I do know of one event Dennis Cook has coming up that people might be interested in. They are working, and this I just saw this approved by the City Commission last week, but they're working on a Manhattan all-class reunion that will be in Aggieville the week, I believe, the weekend of June 11th, 12th, and 13th. So be on the lookout for more information about that. But I know Dennis is working on that. Our Visit Manhattan team is working on that as well, and so that's going to be a good event to hopefully generate some tax dollars and people in the community in the summer. And I'll just mention from the chamber standpoint, we are hearing positive things from our employers in terms of their plans to grow and add employees over the next 3 years. We interviewed around 60 of our top employers. About 60% of those indicated they were planning expansions over the next 3 years. So that's really exciting. And then I want to take a moment to compliment our team who worked extremely hard this year on assisting our business community through COVID. This seems like years and years ago, but initially we handed out a whole lot of masks. I think we did that in concert with the city and even had like a drive-through mask giveaway at some point. We worked with the city and the county to get over $3 million in grants and loans into the hands of our local businesses over the last year. And I know a lot of those have talked about how that kept them open at a time when it was very difficult. And we've had a lot of trainings and opportunities for people to learn about federal and state programs, including one just last week on the restaurant program. So we did our best to get as much information out as we could to members and non-members alike, and hopefully we're able to make some impact on those businesses. So anybody else that wants to provide updates from their organization or what's going on in the community? Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to say on your end before I ask you to talk about the rescue plan?
Actually, you did just make me think, talking about restaurants and businesses and the reunion. I don't know if this is new to the community or just new to United Way, but they are doing that restaurant week, yep, June 11th through the 20th. So that'll catch the reunion going on for the Manhattan High School alumni, but it'll impact them, or it'll have support from businesses downtown, Aggieville, and across the entire community. So I think you'll see, again, as we're talking about reopening and trying to drive our hospitality and tourism, I think that's fortuitous timing that United Way is coming up with their restaurant week.
Yep, and there are a number of restaurants that are engaged in that, and we're real excited about what that's going to look like. And I'm not sure this is going to be the time of the year that it ends up being on an annual basis, but I do think the plan is to make it an annual event. So
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, if there's no updates, I can move just briefly into the status of the American Rescue Plan. We talked about this kind of the last two meetings. That's what President Biden signed back in March. But really now the spigot is flowing. We've gotten a lot of information, particularly there's an allocation just for local governments, as Commissioner Ford knows, for the counties getting an allocation. And the allocations from what was originally communicated for local governments is adjusted a little bit based on some different factors of other block grant formula, poverty rates, unemployment rates. But I think the county is just under 14 million, and the cities at about 12.7 million that will be receiving this week or next from the federal government as part of that $1.9 trillion plan. But I found a good resource, and Commissioner Ford may be familiar with this because it's from the National Association of Counties. And there's a lot of resources from the different professional organizations out there. But I really thought this one was fairly succinct, where they have just kind of the breakdown of the American Rescue Plan funding. And so here it talks about what's coming to counties, just specifically counties, but local governments are getting $362 billion across the country. And then a lot of the direct financial assistance, what a lot of folks have gotten through the stimulus individual checks, has already been deployed, but that was $656 billion. There's some other programs underneath there. And then it's kind of broken down in the different buckets of the assistance to individuals and families, and a lot about education and childcare. And actually, it was just yesterday or 2 days ago that the Department of Education put out a lot of their funding criteria as the Department of Education is going to distribute 36 billion in emergency grants, mainly to higher ed institutions, historically black colleges and others. But really, half of that funding is required to go to direct relief to students. So we will see students able to tap into some of those resources, but it'll also give universities the opportunity to do some reimbursements for their PPE and their other protocols that they've done to get reimbursements for those. But interestingly, this pot of money, just like for state, well, more for counties and cities, it will also let universities recoup lost revenue. This has not been available, from my understanding, for universities in the prior federal legislation, and it definitely wasn't available for cities and counties in prior legislation. So that's a benefit from this new legislation as the American Rescue Plan. But you also see health. There's a whole lot of information there about different health grants, mental health grants. Clearly, that helps provide for health departments and other agencies across the country. Transportation even has some money in there, or ATA, local, we should be able to qualify for some grants in there. And then there's this other category of other programs. And I'll click on that and hopefully you can see. So there's some disaster relief that is available. Emergency Food and Shelter Program really supports a lot of our area nonprofits. So that money has been ramped up. And then if you see, there's even some things about firefighters and emergency response, emergency management again, but you even see there's things in here about air pollution, environmental justice, National Endowment for the Arts. So there is a ton of different programs under each of these buckets. And so I would say even there are special funds for Convention Visitors Bureau, tourism, the PPE is still out there again. So there's just a lot of resources out there that we encourage everyone to tap into. So definitely want to make sure that everyone is really just paying attention to the different federal agencies, because right now, I said Department of Ed, we're getting it from Department of Treasury for our local city and county funds. They're just now rolling out their requirements and their program parameters. And so you will see a lot of the grant applications, particularly for us local governments. Broadband is certainly connectivity, something that local school districts can also tap into. So I just wanted to highlight again, there is money available. And so we want to make sure our community, our organizations are able to tap into it and know about it. And so there are different, like I said, national professional organizations, National Association of Counties, National League of Cities, and others who are helping to get the word out. I think some of our area professional associations from the mental health and even the health department's getting some daily information about different grants and different financial support as we're talking about some of even the incentives are available to help encourage vaccinations. So I just want to cover that to give a reminder to everyone, even for people who are watching, for local groups and nonprofits, there's still a lot of resources available that actually have a lot of new funding criteria that were not available under the previous two kind of stimulus programs. But this plan with the 1.9 trillion does make a lot of resources available. I don't know if John or Commissioner Ford, if you wanted to say anything, or Shiloh.
Yeah, I've got a few things to add to that. I'm impressed that you're using the National Association of Counties there. I would assume that the league will be coming out with something.
They do.
Yeah, they put together a basically what they're calling a recovery clearinghouse, and they've got it streamlined and set up pretty well. The Raleigh County portion is, and much like the city, is based off of a population formula as well. And for us, that amount is going to be $14,418,696, split into two different allocations. And I think that's the same for the cities. Some of those deadlines, depending on what you're using it for and what they are, will stretch all the way out as far as December of 2024. So we got, much like unlike last year where everything was done kind of quickly and in a panic, we got plenty of time to kind of work and dialogue and communicate and find the best ways to use this funding, in the area and in the region. A couple interesting things that Dennis didn't mention too is this funding that's coming down to the local levels can also be used for premium pay for essential employees if you held up raises and step increases or even went backwards on that last year during the pandemic. It's also good for water and sewer infrastructure. You did mention the broadband already, so I'll leave that one alone, just to add a couple of other ones on there. Still trying to figure out, it's supposed to be able to replace lost revenue, but there's going to be some real specifics on that. And I've picked up on that in a couple of national teleconference calls I've been on. So there's still going to be more to that. But you mentioned school and educational services. There's environmental remediation that could be part of that. Health services, police and first responders, and other critical emergency and safety services are also part of that. So there's several things that we're looking at with that as well. And at least on the county side, we're going to continue to work with, I believe, at least it's been discussed anyway, with Whit O'Brien's, the consultant that we used in the fall. The state's using them. So as that comes down, we'll have a second option to be able to look at some things so that we can, obviously spread this money out over the course of however many, 3-4 years at this particular point in time. So it's really encouraging when you think about just that part of it alone, not even the other separate bits of money. It's, somewhere probably going to be close to about $30 million coming into the area. And I would probably assume that that's never happened before, at least that I've been able to uncover, and it may not ever happen again. So it's a one-time thing that we really need to take advantage of and really allocate properly for the future. So.
And I will say, Commissioner, from the city side about trying to understand those parameters about the lost revenue, because certainly we've had some of those dips from both of our local governments, and then also evaluating some of the past expenses that we didn't or weren't able to recoup just because the amount of money available from the Spark and other things. So I know we're working jointly on some of the same issues as a local government entities together, trying to figure out how this money is to be deployed, and then again, what the county strategies are for going forward and what the city strategies are. So we'll continue to work with the city commission as we do our budget development with those funds.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any comments or questions? All right, well, we are going to have a conversation about whether this group needs to continue to meet or not. As we learned today, there's a lot going on to help get our community back to normal. Particularly with lifting the restrictions, and we have a low percentage positive rate in the hospital and local healthcare system is able to manage the current caseload. We do need to encourage vaccinations, and that's something that I think we all understand and need to figure out how to move forward. But as Bob and Dennis and I have visited about the scope of work of this group, we began thinking about have we satisfied the charge of the task force, and should we go ahead and conclude the work of the group? So the charge was pretty simple from the mayor at the time, Ushareddy, to develop a measured and phased recovery path forward for our community. If you think that the topics have been addressed, and it has been quite a few things over the last year, then we just need to start thinking about the conversation about whether if there's consensus that the charge has been satisfied, and if so, should we proceed to the development of a final report and hold one last meeting in June, as Commissioner Ford stated, probably in person, just get a chance to everybody see everybody. So I think we are going to open that for discussion and see what people think about it. I don't think I'm giving away anything. Bob, I think is in favor of this, as Dennis and I are as well. And but we also don't want to stop too soon. If everyone thinks we need to keep going, I think we're all willing to keep going as well. So, Lisa.
We can ramp back up again if we need to. So I think this is a good plan. It would be great to be able to get together in person. That would be a nice cherry on top of this, because we started this virtually. It'd be nice to end it in real life. So that's my vote.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with that. I think that we really addressed some pretty significant topics and did a good job with that. And I totally agree with Lisa that we can ramp back up when needed. So I'm really excited to get together in June in person.
Carla, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was going to say essentially the same thing. I think that we can certainly, the relationships now have been cemented, and I think as it's been very beneficial, but I think we can find each other collectively or individually now that we've been working together for this past year. So I'm great with that plan.
Okay, Linda, you came off mute.
Yeah, no, I would agree that I think we've accomplished our mission, and we can watch if something starts to change with the virus during the summer and we need to call another meeting, then we can. But I agree, getting together in person and just celebrating, and I'm happy to go down to one of the platforms if we want to meet down on a platform, or have a meeting and go and meet afterwards at the platform at the end of the day. So
All right, there's a vote for a platform.
I had a couple of thoughts that are maybe different than everybody else's on this. I'm actually still kind of in favor of keeping it. With all the money and everything that's coming in, the ability to talk about what we need to do and how to need to go with that, I think is still pretty important. I mean, over the last 14 months now, we've discussed more response and in the moment than we have really recovery. And now we're at that point where we are kind of in recovery, and maybe there's still some discussion that needs to be had. I'm also, think that with everything that's coming in the fall, with school reopening, with the university reopening, having a meeting or two at least, maybe around September or October, might not be the worst possible thing. Just to make sure that we're tracking and heading in the right direction at that particular point in time. To even if positivity rates and everything else are down, but it's been interesting over the last 14 months to say the least.
So, Commissioner, are you saying you'd be for maybe not regular meetings, but as needed meetings? Is that kind of what I got? Okay.
Yeah. You were talking about a final report and stuff, and I would suggest that maybe we'd be a little cautious with that at this point in time. But I'm all for meeting in person in June. Platforms are fine with me as well. However we want to do that, it's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And quick on our end for the regional council, we're still actively working on our recovery and resiliency plan. I apologize, there's a lawnmower going on in the background. So we'll be actively going forward, getting more data. Obviously, we're still working through recovery since we're kind of still in the pandemic a bit, even though it feels like we're in the home stretch. And so I would kind of agree with essentially all of the comments that have been made, but especially the need to kind of everybody keep a pulse on what's going on in the region, because it is changing, things are changing, money's coming out, different initiatives are coming up. So I think that is the one really good thing about this, is that everybody kind of has an idea of what everyone's doing. And I feel like that's something that we've been missing. I did send Dennis a link to just a quick thing to gather some responses from you all. So not necessarily in a final report sort of format, but I know we talked about lessons learned a while ago, and just kind of keeping an idea of what you all think we need for recovery. And as we move forward, that might change a little bit. So just kind of making sure that we keep everybody apprised of what's going on and what we all think is needed in our communities and our region, I think is invaluable. So maybe not meeting all the time like we have been, but maybe making sure that we meet every so often to kind of keep up with what's going on, I think would be great.
Okay. Any other comments? Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add on that, or were you?
Well, we'll do the chair's prerogative, but I can certainly see if we want to go ahead and stay as a task force, and maybe there is 3 more meetings left and meet quarterly or something going into the end of the year. But certainly, I think let's continue the conversation in June. I think as Commissioner Ford was highlighting, the spending and funding, I think we'll have a bit more clarity. from the city and county side on that going forward over the next month or two. So how much input he wants after the budget formulation, I think that'll be the conversation. The second, I understand about the second payments will be coming from the federal government a year from now. So I do think if we can move forward to a June meeting would be good. Certainly in person, I would suggest that we need to have a business meeting first, and then we'll adjourn and move to a more social setting if you'd like to for those invited. And we can work on the agenda for the June meeting. But I do like the idea of putting together maybe an outline of what a final report would look like, and then see if we do want to talk in June about maybe meeting every other month through the end of December or something.
Okay, Gina, you had your hand up.
Yep, I was just going to say that I'm happy to coordinate the social aspect of that June meeting, if that's on a platform, or move it inside if the weather's not cooperating. Happy to do that. So you guys just let me know.
Okay. Any other comments? So what I'm hearing is we definitely will be meeting in person in June. We may sketch out some kind of a report for people to look at, and we can consider moving forward, whether it's more of an ad hoc, I don't know if that's the right term, but as needed kind of meeting schedule versus monthly, or if we continue to meet monthly. So, all right.
And that does bring up, I mean, generally our meeting schedule, it's certainly been on a Thursday. Kind of have two options there, June 17th or June 24th. I would suggest we actually kick it back to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, plan on meeting for an hour, and then adjourn to elsewhere. And so I don't know if the 17th or the 24th is a preference. We can do a little doodle poll on that, or see if there's any initial thoughts right now.
Okay.
Third Thursdays.
I think we have a county city or a city county meeting on the 24th.
Yeah.
This shows the recovery meeting was on the 10th, June 10th.
And third Thursday is on the 17th.
I got you.
Oh, wait a minute. On the 17th, Dennis, the city county meeting.
But that's also third Thursday, right, Gina?
Correct.
Thursday, right?
Okay. Yeah, you're right. We are in the second. So you're right. June 10th would be this regular. So we can stick with that, but maybe push it back an hour.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because is that on your calendars right now? Is that?
June 10th is.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that on there then, and see about just pushing it back an hour.
Okay. Oh, there's our distinguished co-chair. Before we break, I would like to ask Dennis Butler, and I'm going to put him on the spot, so hopefully he's still there. As everyone knows, the mask ordinance in Manhattan ends Sunday at midnight. Technically Monday at midnight. I have received correspondence from some businesses who are concerned about their ability to maintain the mask requirements in their own facility, and the public's response because there's not. Director Bella, can you address that just briefly in the rights of a business owner to enforce mask rules in their own establishments?
Sure. We've received expressions of those same concerns from some business owners. If they want to continue requiring masks after the ordinance expires. And it is their prerogative as a business owner to require certain attire in their businesses, or they can refuse service. It's similar to the no shoes, no shirts, no service policy. So if the business requires a mask to be worn, then they can refuse those patrons if they don't want to do it. Part of the issue then comes down to what if someone refuses to wear a mask and then refuses to leave? If a customer refuses to wear a mask and a business requires it and then refuses to leave, then they would be trespassing on the business and on the premises of the business, and the owner would be certainly within their rights to call the police and have us respond and ask the patron to leave. If the patron still refused, then they would be subject to being cited or arrested for trespassing. I hope it doesn't come to that, and I hope people are reasonable and respect the rights of business owners to operate their businesses safely the way they would like to. We did put out a social media post on this about a week and a half ago, and I had planned on repeating that on Monday, so it would remind people what their obligations are if a business requires a mask to be worn. Since we're talking about this, I'll also mention that I will not be requiring my officers to wear masks generally. We are requiring it in the building right now. And they will have them with them, because if they go into a business and it's a casual visit, it's not an emergency, or if there's a specific reason why an officer would not need to wear or should not wear a mask in a business where it's required, I'm going to leave that discretion up to them, and hopefully they'll explain it to the business owner, and then we'll deal with it. But as far as if they want to go in and eat somewhere and the restaurant requires a mask, then the officers would be required to wear a mask going in if they were going there to dine. So we expect them to follow the same guidance as a citizen when it comes to those types of situations. I'm sure we'll run into something that we haven't anticipated, and we'll work our way through it like we always do. So with that said, are there any questions?
I would just encourage people to be nice.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, it is, it's, I know people, it's the right of the business to establish the rules in their establishment, and it's the right of the customer to not go to that establishment if they don't like the rules established by the owner. So both groups have rights, and as long as one doesn't interfere with the other, then everything works out well. So,
if I can, I will say that throughout this, as things have changed, guidance has changed, laws have changed, ordinances have been enacted, for the most part, when we have to get involved or someone calls us, almost everybody has behaved reasonably in those situations. So I've been very pleased with the behavior of all people involved, whether they're citizens or business owners or others. It's gone relatively smoothly, and I'm very thankful for that.
One other challenge that our local businesses are having, and Gina mentioned this a minute ago, the labor market right now is incredibly tight, and most, particularly restaurants, hotels, those kind of businesses, are having trouble being fully staffed. So a little patience, I think, helps in those scenarios. It's probably a little bit longer wait than we're used to. It may not be as good a service as we're used to, but I know they're all trying very hard to get fully staffed again and get people trained, and it's just going to take some time to get through that. So we're excited to see places open, and we all want to go in and be exactly like it was, and it's just not going to be for a while, but that doesn't mean we still can't go and enjoy our local restaurants and bars and hotels and all the places that make Manhattan great. So with that, Bob, did you have anything you wanted to say before we adjourn?
Guy that comes last probably shouldn't say too much. Hope it went well today.
We missed you. We had so many technical difficulties that we blamed you for it. So
that's actually been part of my day too. So that's cool.
We're all experiencing it. Well,
All
good.
right.
I have some takeaways, Jason and Bob. A couple links I need to send out. Alice's contact email, and then we'll finalize the time frame on June 10th for our next meeting in person. So we will look forward to seeing everyone. So mark your calendars for a time to see everyone in person.
Okay. Well, without objection, we will stand adjourned.